This man had never fought a single match before stepping into the arena. Standing across from him was a Roman champion with 14 victories to his name. No one even bothered placing bets. The outcome seemed obvious. But minutes later, a name would be carved into the walls of Pompeii that would survive for the next 2,000 years. Most gladiators never chose this life. They were slaves, prisoners of war, condemned criminals, thrown into the arena because Rome had already decided their fate. Marcus Attilius was different. He was born free, a Roman citizen, with a name, a family, a place in society that most gladiators could only dream of. And yet, here he stood, about to risk his life for the crowd's entertainment. The most likely reason? Debt. In the late 1st century, a Roman citizen drowning in unpaid loans had few options. And one of them was signing the gladiator's oath, to be burned, bound, beaten, and killed with iron if the crowd demanded it. It was a legal contract that stripped away nearly every right a Roman citizen normally held. Attilius signed it anyway. Whatever debt he owed, it was worth more to him than the life he'd been living. And in doing so, he traded his freedom for one single chance to become someone the crowd would remember. The day finally came. Attilius stood in the tunnel beneath the arena, listening to the roar above, tens of thousands of voices waiting for blood. He'd trained for weeks, but weeks were nothing against a lifetime in the sand. His opponent that day was Hilarus, a gladiator fighting under Nero, already a household name in the arena circuit. 12 to 14 victories, depending on the record you trust. A veteran who had walked out of the arena alive more times than most gladiators ever fought at all. The crowd knew his name before he even stepped onto the sand. They didn't know Attilius's. When the two men faced each other, the mismatch was obvious to everyone watching. Hilarus moved with the calm confidence of a man who had done this dozens of times. Attilius had nothing but the oath he'd signed, and whatever instinct kept him alive in the next few minutes. The fight began. And for a while, it looked exactly like everyone expected. Hilarus pressing forward, controlling the distance, doing what champions do. But Attilius didn't break. He absorbed blow after blow, refusing to give ground, refusing to give the crowd the quick, predictable ending they'd come for. Then in a moment no one saw coming, the debtor who had never fought before found an opening. One strike, one decision, and Rome's champion was on the ground. The arena went silent, then it exploded. Nobody. Not the bookmakers, not the crowd, not even Attilius himself, probably, expected this outcome. A man with 0 fights had just defeated one of the most feared gladiators in Rome. One victory could be luck. Rome knew that. A debtor beating a champion once might just mean Hilarus had a bad day. Nothing more than an accident that the crowd would forget by the next games. If Attilius wanted to be remembered, he needed to do it again. His next opponent was Lucius Raecius Felix, another veteran with their 12 recorded victories fighting for a rival school. This wasn't a rematch against the same style of fighter. It was a different test entirely, against a man who had studied countless opponents and knew exactly how to close out a fight quickly. This time there was no element of surprise. Everyone in the stands had heard what happened last time. Some came specifically to see if the debtor-turned-fighter was real, or if his first win had simply been chance. The two men circled each other, and unlike the first fight, Attilius wasn't holding back to survive. He was fighting to prove something. Blow for blow, he matched a man with a full career's worth of experience, refusing to let the pressure of expectation break his focus, and when it ended the same way. Attilius standing, Raecius Felix defeated, 2 fights, 2 champions, 0 losses. In a world where most gladiators didn't survive their first 10 matches, a man who wasn't even supposed to survive his first one had just beaten 2 of the best fighters Rome had to offer. Word spread fast. In Pompeii, where gladiator contests were as much a local obsession as a spectacle, someone picked up a stylus and did something that would outlast the Roman Empire itself. They wrote his name on a wall. Nearly 2,000 years later, archaeologists walked through the ruins of Pompeii, a city frozen in time by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Buried under ash for centuries, its walls have preserved something no history book ever recorded: graffiti. Real, unfiltered messages scratched into plaster by ordinary Romans. Among the political slogans, the love notes, and the insults, one name kept appearing: Marcus Attilius. Not carved by a historian trying to document greatness, carved by someone who had watched him fight or heard the story and wanted the world to know it happened. This is what makes his story different from most gladiators we know about. Spartacus survives in history because Rome feared him enough to write about his rebellion. Emperors survive because they controlled the record, but Attilius survives because of graffiti. Because an ordinary person, centuries before social media, before newspapers, before any formal record-keeping, decided a debtor's 2 victories were worth scratching into a wall forever. We don't know what happened to him after that. No record shows a third fight, a fourth, or how his story ended. Whether he won his freedom, retired, or died in a match no one thought to write down. The trail simply stops. And maybe that's fitting. Attilius didn't need a Hollywood ending. He'd already done what almost no one in his position was supposed to do. He walked into an arena with nothing, and he made Rome remember his name. Somewhere in what's left of Pompeii, his name is still there, scratched into plaster by someone who had no idea it would outlast an empire. A debtor with no fights to his name walked into an arena everyone expected him to die in, and walked out twice as someone Rome couldn't forget. History remembers emperors because they wrote their own records. It remembers Attilius because a stranger thought 2 wins were worth remembering. That's rarer than any record of victories. If stories like this, the ones history almost lost, are what you come here for, subscribe, and I'll keep digging them up.